So I'm speaking in English, so please put your headphones on. You don't want to miss this very interesting presentation. This is the clicker? Okay. Okay, thank you, Anur. It's an absolute pleasure to be in Istanbul and with you today and to share with you specifically some very new policy developments coming out of the European Union. And just as a reminder, the European Union covers 28 European countries, at least 28 for now, but we'll see what happens in the next few weeks. So a little bit about RELOOP. RELOOP was founded 4 years ago, and very briefly, RELOOP is really a synthesis of my experience over 25 years, where I've realized that there is a common vision of waste reduction that is shared not only with the environmental sector and local government, but also with businesses, progressive businesses. So RELOOP really combines these three stakeholders and advocates on behalf of the three stakeholders to change public policy. We focus on three things, including deposits and including recycled content mandates, meaning forcing producers to utilize recycled material in their products and packaging. We want to see the reusable packaging expanded. We want to see how we calculate and deal with data surrounding recycling improved. We support deposit return for beverage containers, but also for other difficult to capture items. And finally, we want to see improved collection and sorting of all materials, which includes things like pay-as-you-throw garbage, getting organics out of the garbage and having separate collection for food waste, and these kinds of initiatives. Whoops. These are our members, and as you can see, they really are a broad sector, including a cross-sector of NGOs, local government, and, of course, TÜÇEM. So, a very quick little lesson on how things work at the European Union. There are basically three branches of government, and the top one is the Commission, and they are like the bureaucracy. And they are the ones that come up with the ideas and basically do the work and propose the legislation. After legislation is proposed, it goes to the two other houses, or the two other branches of government, one being the European Parliament, which has over 700 members from 28 countries, 9 different political parties, and many languages. And then the European Council, which is effectively just the 28 member states. These are the ministries from each member state that have an office in Brussels. And the legislation goes from the bureaucracy, and then it's debated in both of the different branches, and then amendments are suggested. They come together, they negotiate, and hopefully, at the end, you have an agreement on a European law. When the European law is introduced, member states usually have 2 years to transpose it, which means they have to implement laws in their own country to ensure that they meet the requirements of the big law, the Uber law, okay? So very quickly, the last 3 years has seen significant change in Europe, and I'm going to give you a summary of what's happened. We've seen existing legislation amended, and here's a summary of some of the key factors. They've put a cap on landfilling waste of 10% by 2035, which ultimately means we have to do a much better job source separating our waste, because incineration is not the answer to this. The answer is a lot more recycling and reduction. There's a 65% binding target for municipal household recycling by 2035, which includes everything: tires, furniture, books, packaging, food waste, etc. We also have a new set of packaging targets in the Packaging Directive, and they're listed here by 2025 or 2030. And of particular interest is plastics at 55% by 2030, recognizing that in most jurisdictions, the plastics recycling rate is way below 55%. So we have quite a bit of work to do. A new recycling calculation, which in essence says you can only count what is being recycled. So this means you can't count water, liquids, moisture, glue, labels, dirt, anything else. And it will, of course, also impact our performance because many, many jurisdictions count contamination, which shouldn't be counted. And finally, and one of the biggest, I think, impacts is going to be around extended producer responsibility, where producers have to finance the costs of waste management, is going to be increased. They're going to have to pay for more. It'll be a minimum of 50% for existing systems, like for packaging or more, and 80% for any new systems that come into place. So what we're seeing, the impact on producers, whether it's Coke and Pepsi or IBM and Toshiba and Apple Computer, all of these companies are going to have to contribute more money to collect and properly treat the products that become waste, the products that they sell that become waste. Oops, sorry. The other very interesting development that happened basically throughout 2018, it started in early January and it ended on December 19th, was the plastics strategy. And this is really a response to the plastics crisis around the world. The Commission released a strategy with a series of measures to be undertaken, but part of it, and it came out 4 months later, was they actually put out a draft piece of legislation. And it's called the Single-Use Plastics Directive, or known as SUBD. SUBD. And I'm happy to say that it was one of the fastest moving legislations through that process of negotiation that I think the European Union has ever seen for something that will have such a significant impact. Just before Christmas, they finalized their negotiation at 7 a.m. in the morning, and we now have final text, and this law will probably be officially published in the summer, June or July. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about it because it's a very, very interesting law. Oh, sorry. So, a couple of key parts. One of the parts is that it actually calls for a ban on certain products. This means that producers or retailers are restricted to sell these products within 2 years of publication. So by 2021, summer 2021, these products will be banned. Of particular interest is the last one, expanded polystyrene takeaway packaging, which is the white, foamy, lightweight plastic packaging. That was actually introduced not by the Commission but by the Parliament, and it went through. This will have a very significant impact, which means that all member states have to ban these products at a national level, and they can also go beyond this list. They can ban other things if they choose to. The next thing has to do with design requirements for plastic beverage bottles, and it includes that the cap on top of the bottle has to be connected to the bottle. So you can't have it, you can't take your cap off and throw it away. It has to be connected. They've given the industry 5 years to comply. So we're going to see some big design changes throughout Europe. The other one, which is a first, I think, in the world except for California, is that all beverage producers that make PET beverage bottles will have to incorporate 25% recycled content PET by 2025, and by 2030, all beverage bottles made from plastic, PET, high density, whatever it is, has to have 30% recycled content by 2030. So this is another really great and big driver towards circular economy. The next one has to do with producers paying for the cost of waste treatment and collection and treatment and basically all of the costs. This is a list of products that are not normally covered by extended producer responsibility, but now the producers of these products are also going to have to contribute funds, in particular to collect the litter. So this is also a very important piece because it means that producers are going to have to pay for the mess. And it also means that there could be new sources of funds to local government to help finance the cleanups of beaches and parks and anywhere, frankly, where there's litter. And if anybody wants to, if you don't understand what these things are, you can ask me. The next one, which is a really big one, and it was probably the most debated one, has to do with setting a target on plastic beverage bottles. In the end, the target is 77% collection by 2025 and 90% collection by 2030. Yes, 90% for all of the European Union. They've allowed member states some flexibility to say that member states can do it how they want to do it. They've suggested that they utilize either deposit return or, if they want to do something else, through an extended producer responsibility system, they have the option as well. However, my own belief is that they'll go for deposits because at least we know deposits are proven to work. They are proven to work. And here is just some statistics from the 8 countries in the European Union that currently manage deposit return systems. These are their rates for 2016 or 2017, but you can see the median or the average is 90%. And that's probably why the Commission set the target at 90%. Let's go with best in class. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about how deposit returns systems are actually growing across the globe. In particular, in Australia, we've seen the introduction of deposits in Queensland and New South Wales in the last 2 years. We're going to see it in Western Australia in 2020, and we're even going to see it probably in Victoria by 2021. It basically means that Australia will be the first continent on the planet that has deposit return from coast to coast to coast to coast. And this is a map of Europe which shows you in black are existing systems and in green are the systems that are planned to roll out. The vast majority of them in green already have legislation in place, but a few of them have the commitment of the government, and that's why we put them on this list. A couple of notable ones, of course, is Turkey with 80 million people. Congratulations, Turkey. A huge step forward. Also, Romania has 20 million people, so that's a really big impact. And Portugal has 10 million people, and England has 60 million people. So already we are seeing member states and other European countries get their activity together to meet high targets and growing demand for recycled content. I want to talk a little bit about the caps issue because it is an issue and it does show up in litter composition studies. We were curious to know about if there was a cap problem in a deposit system. So we reached out to operators of deposit systems and we said, you know, for every 100 bottles that come back in a deposit system, what % have the cap on the bottle? Because that's important to know. And they all got back to me, whoops, and this was the question we asked, and basically the responses were anywhere from 90 to 90% of the bottles that come back have the caps on. So in other words, deposit return is a fantastic solution not only for bottles, but also for caps. And then I'm going to leave it here, and we have 2 people that are going to tell you all about deposit return. Thank you.